All right, fantastic. My name is Christopher Gardner. I am from the University of Michigan, and with me here is Matthew Pickus, also from the University of Michigan, ironically. We're going to talk to you a little bit about our reporting that we have done at the University of Michigan at a very, very high level. We did some reports for the regents, the president, the deans, and the budget administrators for the university. We want to tell you a little bit about our story, how we got there, and some of the challenges we faced along the way, and provide you guys with some takeaways that you might be able to use in your own businesses or in your own higher education institutions. So to get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. So my name is Christopher Gardner. I am a certified desktop associate. I have a bachelor in actuarial mathematics, and why I didn't go into actuarial mathematics is because it's really hard, so I decided to go into data. I've worked at the university for almost 20 years now. I've seen it from the student perspective, from the individual unit perspectives, and now I'm working at the central IT location, so I'm seeing it from all different angles. And in my off time, I like to travel a lot and woodwork, so I have a little bit of that going for me. And here is Matt.
My name is Matthew Pickus. This is what happens when you go on vacation and you look at your office mate and say, can you fill out some of the slides for us while I'm out? So, see if I can translate some of that for you. I have a BS and MS from the University of Michigan, MBA from Cornell. I used to do hazardous and radioactive materials emergency response management, which is that other bullet point in there. I was drum major of the Michigan Marching Band. See if we can translate the rest of this. I was at one point in time a competitive ballroom dancer, and I am unfortunately leaving Tableau before Data Night Out. I'm traveling to San Diego to walk in my 27th 60-mile breast cancer event. So I apologize. Thank you. So y'all have fun at Data Night Out. I will be on the beach. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about how we got here, which is the University of Michigan Tableau Consortium, a very brief synopsis of how we got Tableau onto the university campus. We'll talk about University Metrics, which is the dashboard for our president, regents, executive officers. Michigan Metrics, which is one step lower, to our deans, our budget administrator groups. The bridge table, many of you I've talked to over the last couple of days and longer ago with that. There's always the issues of the data sets don't talk to each other. So, yeah, there's a lot of nodding in the room. Oh my God, yes. So we're going to talk about how we solved that problem, which has plagued the university for many, many years. And then we'll just touch briefly on the future plans. So how we got here was actually a talk I gave at TC 15, also in Vegas, about the Michigan Consortium. So when we looked at, in 2012 and 2013, there was interest of getting Tableau Server on campus. We had Tableau in our health system that was HIPAA certified, so we couldn't really use it on campus. We needed our own. And like many of you have the same problem, there's not one budget at your university. You've got a whole bunch of different budgets, and we had to get all those budgets to agree. We'll joke about the fact that the University of Michigan is about 85 to 100 corporations held together by a football team. So we had to get all those budgets to agree to fund Tableau Server, and the issue was we did not have a C-level champion. Nobody was saying, thou shalt use this. So we had to come up with the means to get all these different budgets to agree, and we had to make sure that those who bought in early weren't rewarded or punished, and those who came in after the server was purchased weren't punished or rewarded for waiting. So that's what we talked about. What happened was over the last few years, we got the server in 2014. As of about a month ago, we have 60,000 to 80,000 views a month, 1,500 publishers, and as of this fiscal year for the university, Tableau Server has become a common good, which means we no longer have the need for the Tableau Consortium. Tableau Server is funded centrally by the university. Which leads us to University Metrics and how the president got involved. And I said we didn't have a C-level champion early on. We found one very quickly.
Thanks, Matt. So, University Metrics, there's a little bit of a story behind this. We've heard a couple different versions, so I'm going to give you the version that I heard. So, when I started in business intelligence at the university, I was brought in because they found out I had a degree in mathematics. They're like, oh, he'd be great for that sort of stuff. They brought me in, and a lot of the team was turning over, and they said, we need somebody to run Tableau. And I said, I can run Tableau. And the motto in our group was, we support the BI services, but we don't do any actual reporting ourselves. So I'm supporting a product that I don't use. That didn't work. So I started using Tableau and starting familiarizing myself with it. And we had a new director come in, and on the first day, he walked in, and I heard him talking. I walked around the corner and introduced myself, and I said, I'm managing your Tableau server. I'm keeping it up to date and doing the upgrades, that sort of stuff. And he's like, do you use Tableau? I'm like, yeah, a little bit. I'm getting pretty good at it. And he's like, no, you're going to be the Tableau guy. Okay, sure. All right, so I'll do that. So he left, and he went out and started meeting all the leadership of the university, specifically the president, the provost, and all that. And he came back about the time my manager was starting, and he went into a meeting with my manager. But the first day he went, my first day my manager was here, he went into a meeting, and they disappeared for a little bit. And the manager came up to my cube, and he says, President has heard about Tableau, he's seen some Tableau dashboards, and he wants to see what it can do. I said, okay, all right. So how much time do we have to do it? About 2 weeks. Okay, so we reached out to some of the units on campus that we knew were using Tableau, and we got some of their dashboards, we pulled them together. We built 2 or 3 of our own, got them validated, made sure the data was right, compared them against the existing reports, put them all together in one big dashboard, smashed them together, and we said, here you go, I hope this is good. Well, apparently it was, because that very first meeting, when he came back and talked to my manager, he says, the president loved it. He'd like to see more. Here's a list of 96 of the metrics that the president would like to see. So, University Metrics was born. Of course, when you're reporting at that level for a university, there are tons of challenges. The University of Michigan is huge, okay? We have a $10 billion a year budget, which is about a Fortune 300 company. We have 50,000 employees, about 50,000 students in 19 schools and colleges. We have 37 million square feet of building space. We have power generation. We have a police department. We have a transportation system. We have a development office, a university research hospital. We're huge, and there is data everywhere. So this reporting list that we got, we had to figure out where this data came from, who has it, who can we talk to, how do we pull this data, how do we visualize this data, and how do we avoid any of these mistakes. So we had a very, very daunting task ahead of us. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, I had been supporting Tableau. I hadn't been using it. Now I really had to know how to use it, so I started going online, watching videos, getting in it, and trying it myself. So we were learning Tableau, we were learning the data of the university, all at the same time we were building this gigantic dashboard for the president and the regents. So there's a lot of different parts that the president asked for. He's very, very interested in the HR aspects of it, the faculty, the staff. He wants to know more about the students. How many students have we got coming in, admissions, graduation rates. How are we doing as far as students coming in? How many are actually graduating? What is our diversity, race, ethnicity, gender, all that sort of stuff. There were tons of different metrics. So we started reaching out to the different groups, and we were luckily assigned our institutional research office to work with. And they came in and started providing us with some of these data sets, and we started building. So the first thing that we did is said, what can we do easy? We started picking at all the low-lying fruits. What are the things we know real well? What are the things that we already have reports for? What are the things we already have results for? And what can we start working on it? The good news is we now had an executive champion for Tableau, and we had a lot of data to pick from. So when we're talking about all this stuff, there are some key takeaways from this. The first one is you can have the groundswell like we did, which is a great way to get Tableau going, but it's also great if you can get somebody at a C-level, a champion for you, someone way up there that says, I think Tableau is great, I want to start seeing more of it, because as soon as they start using it, the people below them are like, hey, they're using it, let's keep going with this. The other thing we took away from this is you've got to start with the low-lying fruit. Show them the benefits. Take the things that are easy, show the power of the tool, show what it can do, so that as you're working more and you get into more complicated stuff, people are willing to wait a little bit longer to see what you can come up with. Our first challenge, where's the data? We had to figure out where all this data was. When you're reporting at the university level, we have our central data warehouse, and a lot of our data is in there. We have our HR and our student data, our financial data is in there, but a lot of it also isn't. We have information, he wanted information on our social media, and some of our social media information. That's hard to find. He wanted information on how many times University of Michigan was mentioned in a publication. Think about that for a second, okay? There's a lot of data that we could easily get to and a lot of stuff we couldn't. So we really started focusing in on getting the data, we started focusing in on working with our institutional research office, also known as our Office in Budget and Planning, and working with them to get the data out. What we found right off the bat was it was very beneficial to have that data expert with us, because we didn't know the data nearly as well as they did. Our expertise was building Tableau, their expertise was the data, and you put us together, we can make it work really well. We also had lots of data stewards at the university. Each of our different divisions has a data steward. We have an HR data steward. We have a development data steward. People we could go to and say, hey, what's the best way to report this? How should we report this? How do we report this to the government? How do we report this to the state? How do we report this to the national rankings, the magazines and stuff? What's the best way to report this data? So we were reaching out to the data experts that way as well. We have lots of different areas, and IR, as I said before, was very key in providing us with this information. So the takeaways from this right off the bat is be an expert in building your visualization. You're never going to be an expert in all the data sets in your organization unless you're really good. Matt and I, when we're working together on these dashboards, Matt's very good in finance, so he handles a lot of the finance dashboards. I handle a lot of the students and HR dashboards, and some of them we just split. So we focus on the areas that we're good at, and we make sure that we cover all our areas, but we're not going to be the expert in any of the fields, so we rely on the other experts on campus. And that's what you should do too as well. Your expertise is going to be, you're here in Tableau. Your expertise is going to be building visualizations, and that's where you should focus your attention. Make sure you have somebody who can be there for you to say your data looks like it's right, here is the correct numbers, these are the numbers that you need to match. Our next challenge that we faced was, as I said, we're not very strong in Tableau. Matt had used it for a little while. I was just getting into it. We had to get better. And we started looking for resources to find ways to get better at Tableau. The first thing I did was reached out to some of my colleagues on campus and said, hey, what do you know? What can you tell me? What tips do you know? The University of Google is your friend. I love the University of Google because somebody out there has tried to do what you're trying to do, and they will have the answer for you. Tableau has a gorgeous website full of all sorts of information, forums and stuff. There are plenty of videos out there to watch. And the best trainer of all for us is just to go in there and try it. You can't break anything. You can try really hard and you can really screw stuff up, but there's always the undo key. We learned a whole bunch from just practicing and trying things out and learning that way. So the takeaways, and I haven't been mentioning it, but each of our takeaways from this has some of our visualization examples. Some of the dashboards that we built for our president are listed in here. So the takeaway from this is find others in your organization who are using Tableau or are familiar with data and work with them, learn from them, give each other tips and tricks. We actually sit in the same cube, mostly because VJ wants to know where we're always at, but also because we work really well together and we can help each other out. 5 or 6 times a day, we'll spin around in our chairs and say, I'm stuck. You need to come over here, look over my shoulder, tell me how to do this. And we'll give each other ideas and get through these really tough challenges that we have. The other takeaway is there are lots of resources for Tableau out there. There are web pages, University of Google, there are tons of videos out there. There are some classes that we can recommend. If you want to touch base with us after the session, we will gladly show you some examples of some websites you can visit. Lots of great resources out there. Obviously, the Tableau conference is a great place to learn a whole bunch about Tableau. So go out and teach yourself as much as possible and get in and play with the software. It will help immensely. The next challenge we have is how to present the data. We had lots of different visualizations we could choose from, but we were also in an organization that wasn't quite ready to hit the visualizations. They weren't used to some of the visualizations that we were excited about. We started pulling out things like box and whiskers, which we thought were really cool. Our institutional research office said, whoa, what's that? No. But we encouraged them. We said, show this to the president anyways. The president's a scientist. Let him take a look at it. And he loved it. So now we know who our customer is, and we know what type of data we can show. We can pull the university along with us and start using more advanced visualizations and get them caught up and get them used to looking at visualizations. The hardest group it is to teach visualizations are accountants. They love their spreadsheets. They love their spreadsheets. You're going to have to fight with them and show them the benefit of looking at a visualization, because there's power in visualizations. So, and then the other thing we did is we utilize the university resources that were available to us. The university has a style guide. So we were able to tap into those university colors and import them into Tableau and use them in all our visualizations. So all the charts have similar colors, similar looks, similar feel. We built a template and we reused that template in each dashboard. We had it sitting on a drive. Whenever we built a new set of reports, we would pull that template in and just duplicate it so all of our standards and our styles and our layouts were the same. So your takeaways from this is another example of one of our reports. This is some faculty awards, I believe.
Yeah,
one of the key takeaways we have from this is gather your requirements fully. Know what you need to report on, know all the caveats, know all the details of what you need to report before you start trying to build something. Because inevitably, you'll build something, you'll get far enough down a path, and they'll say, hey, by the way, this back here is wrong, you need to go off this way. And you have to walk all the way back and start from scratch. Another key thing we learned that's not up here is versioning. If you get a certain distance and they like a certain thing, save that version, create a new version, and keep working on it. If for some reason they don't like the new version you're doing, you have the old version to fall back on. Takeaway number 9, use the existing style guides. Your company probably has a style guide of some sort. Use it. It's very beneficial. Create a TPS file, and if you need to know how to do that, there are websites that can explain it. It allows you to import all of your colors into Tableau and use them in your visualizations. Make your visualizations look like they go with your company. And the last takeaway from this particular area is use the tools that Tableau provides you. When we were building the president's dashboard, we were restricted to an iPad size. All the president and regents used iPads, so we had this little bitty frame. And there were some visualizations that they wanted to see. They wanted to be able to slice HR by 2 different types of demographics, by gender and by race at the same time. So we had to come up with creative ways to do that. And we used parameters in Tableau to do that, just to fill you in. But use some of the resources that Tableau has to come up with new and creative ways to display data when you might not have the real estate to do so. Again, this all led to the university metrics and the president's dashboard. And what was the result? There is a little bit of a story that went with this. The university came up with a program called Michigan
Promise.
Promise.
The Michigan Promise.
Michigan Promise says if you are an in-state student and your family makes under a certain amount of money,
$65K.
you will have a free tuition. The tuition will be covered by grants and everything else like that. And we were curious when the president announced this, was he using our dashboard to make this decision? So we went into the Tableau server and took a look. And sure enough, the week or 2 before he made that announcement, he was in there like 2 to 3 times a week. Just recently, I went in there just to see if he's still using our dashboards, and as you can see, in the month of September, he viewed it 51 times. It was in one of our dashboards at least 50 times in the month of September. So he's using it very, very regularly and is using our data, which is very good. The benefits of all this is it led to our next topic, which is Michigan Metrics, which I'm going to let Matt talk a little bit about.
So University Metrics is university-wide, annual basis, just we're covering the university in one fell swoop, bring it all together, all these different groups, put it all into one dashboard or one dashboard suite, great. We were working with the Office of Budget and Planning, and they realized that they had what they called the gray book. This is something that they printed out each and every year, and they gave to all the schools and colleges on campus, and they wanted to automate it. They wanted to make it digital, they wanted to automate it, they wanted to make it a little bit easier to do year over year. And so they came back to us and said, you did so great with this, can you take it down a level? Go from university down to what we on campus would call schools, colleges, and units, SEUs. There's about 85 SEUs across campus. So we decided that it was student data, HR data, finance, budget, some space management, all these kinds of things that we had to bring together. And the nice thing was, some of the challenges were still the same. Where was the data? Who had the expertise? Well, we already figured that out from doing university metrics. We also had a couple of nuances built into it. We were presenting at a more granular level. So some of that was dividing the data up into all these individual schools, colleges, and units, but there was also how do you do this visually so that we're not building 19 different dashboards, we're building one and everybody can use it, and it's easy enough and functional enough for everybody to get through. So the human factors interface, which is one of my specialties I enjoy because it's just the psychological play, we had to figure out how to make that work. One nuance, by the way, there's essentially 2 sets of books on campus. I mentioned before that there's 85 different corporations at the university. Each has their own nuances. Each operates slightly differently. We have some very, very big schools. The largest is our College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. Some of the smaller schools like kinesiology or the Gerald Ford School of Public Policy all run a little bit differently. But everybody needs to report up to the provost and central finance and central HR in the same way. Everybody has two sets of books, and you're not going to get rid of that. You just have to recognize that that happens. But it's one of the major challenges because there's different definitions out there. I'll cover that in a minute. One of the good things we had is we had an answer sheet because we were replacing the gray book. So as we're building the data sets and pulling everything together, we could look back at the previous few 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. We had an answer sheet. It was like going back to the end of the math book and getting the answers from the solutions that were back there. It was great. So we knew we were building things properly. We started out with basic level of Tableau skills, but we picked it up through University Metrics. We picked it up again through University Metrics. So counting methodologies and standards. I talked about the two sets of books. One of the nuances that we had is different definitions. The data stewards are going to say we always define things this particular way, which may or may not work for what you need to report on. A couple of good examples of that is in HR is going to count every single body just once. But you've got dual appointed faculty. We've got faculty members who may be in our Ford School of Public Policy and our School of Public Health. Well, when I budget, or when the Office of Budget and Planning budgets for them, each of those schools needs some resources, computer space, lab space, all these kinds of things that cost money. They need to count each of these individuals in each school. But then if you add those up, you're double counting those individuals, and HR is going to look at you and say you have the wrong number. So we had to come up with different definitions, but I said you're not going to get rid of the two sets of books. So the visualization we have up here is our crosswalk between what we call university metrics or workforce metrics. HR, everybody is, not everybody, but every body is counted once, versus Michigan metrics counted, where we actually count everybody for each and every single one of their appointments. So because you're going to get different numbers in HR, we needed the crosswalk. We needed this little crosstab to say this is what you're getting one way or the other. If you're close enough to see it, the names are just jumbled. We have to obfuscate absolutely every single number that's on this entire presentation. So it is gibberish, but you can get the gist of what we're trying to get through. So when you click on one of those cells, you can see, oh, the reason this person is counted differently is because they're dual appointed, or they have this type of appointment versus another kind of appointment. Another thing that comes up to play is federal reporting. HR has to abide by the rules of the Department of Labor as well as the standard procedure guide at the University of Michigan. Our Office of Budget and Planning, they have to deal with what they need to report internally as well as what they need to report based on the Department of Education, based on what they need to report for the clearinghouses when it comes to graduation rates, admission rates, selectivity, and yield. So you have these two masters that are constantly at play. As Chris talked about, you have the standards you want to do visually. It's just good practice so that whenever anybody opens up a dashboard, whether it's an HR dashboard, fin, student, graduation rates, application selectivity, and yield, they all look the same, they all operate the same, they function the same. One thing that Tableau does extraordinarily well is, Chris mentioned we have a workbook out there that is purely just the template. You can just copy that tab, paste it into the other workbook. It will bring data sources and colors and everything with it. Tableau does that really well. One thing we've requested from Tableau is it'd be nice if you could have a little data set that says for this school and college or this unit or this name, use this hex code color. That way in every single one of our data, there's a lot of nodding in the room. Please upvote that online. It'd be great if for every dashboard, the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts was the same color. And our Ford School and our medical school and engineering was always the same color. You have a couple of things educationally that go on. So when Tableau's new on campus, you have to educate the users on how to use Tableau. This is a filter. This is how it works. You may or may not have to hit an apply button. This is how you get through Tableau server. There's the second level of education, which is how to read visualizations and what do they mean. And Chris talked about some of these things. Our finance originally, they wanted a stacked bar chart for our revenue and expenses, source use. They wanted that stacked bar chart, and it's just not the greatest way to visualize that. So we presented the waterfall chart. Did not like it. They started using it. When we get into departmental metrics, we'll talk about next, we kept the waterfall because the departments liked it. They could see things much better. So as you're pulling campus along in terms of using Tableau and knowing how to, you're also pulling them along in terms of their visualization skills and what they can read. Right now, we are going from stacked bars. We're getting into waterfalls. We're hoping that Sankey's going to come next. Remember, what you're starting from before Tableau is probably going to be Excel in three-dimensional pie charts. Yeah, just don't do that. The other thing is, you also have to manage your clients in some ways. I have 20 years of consulting experience, both in and out of the university and in private practice or private industry beforehand. So some clients, you're able to just simply hand them a visualization and say, this is best practice, we think you should use that. And they're, great, that's fine, we'll use that, move on, what's next? Other clients you're going to have to give 2 or 3 different charts to and say, which one do you want to use? We recommend this. It may be challenging. Maybe you can use this middle level one. Sometimes you're going to have a client that says, absolutely not, we only want it this way, and you just kind of inside cringe a little bit when that happens. And you want to take your name off it sometimes too. So you just have to get used to it. You manage up as best you can, you explain why, and you go at it from there. So one of the other things that comes up that Chris mentioned is scope creep. It happens a lot. This is what we need. And oh, by the way, we need this other thing too, and this other thing. And a quick project becomes something that you need Tableau Gantt chart to figure out how long it's going to take you to finish. One of those happened again with Michigan Metrics. So we finished these 12 great dashboards. It was 10 weeks, 4 people, 4 laptops, 8 monitors in a windowless conference room. We had one, I think, 8-foot monitor on the wall, which during the holiday season we put a Yule log on, and just because that was our window. And that's what we had to deal with. And at the end of this project, they looked at us and said, okay, by the way, we also want a single sheet overview. Take the major chart from each one of the separate subject areas, put it on one booklet or one dashboard. And we also need what we call comparative ratios. We need to be able to compare the schools between student to faculty ratio or faculty to lab space ratio and some space management issues. So now we had to do calculations between these data sets we created. Oh boy. Had we knew that early on, we would have completely rebuilt Michigan Metrics in an entirely different way. Well, the problem was now we had to come at it and we had to solve some major challenges, the first being the names bridge. So naming conventions across campus are entirely different. The calculations are impossible between these data sets because things are called differently. We've got 5,800 department IDs on campus. That is the one standard. Those 6-digit department IDs mean the same thing in every single data set. But the names of the schools and colleges were all different. So we had to overcome this long-standing problem. The nice thing is at this point in time, we had a much better understanding of Tableau joins, the way Tableau works, and even how we can get published data sources to work better. I'll also cover that in a second, because there are some dangers with published data sources. We found those the hard way. We don't want you to. So we needed a similar dimension between data sets. The problem was, an example here is our School of Natural Resources and Environment had about 7 different names in the 7 different data sets. So what we did is we needed to standardize that. And we created a code table. The code table was literally every single way that every single unit was called in every single data set, just brought together under one, what we call the bridge key. So all the different ways the School of Natural Resources there is just SNRE. Fine. We did the same thing with LS&A and dentistry and that kind of thing. We then had a second table. This one was distinct. There's one row for the 85 schools, colleges, and units on campus. This is what it's defined as. The nice thing is we were to add some things here. You have the long name, the short name, and the acronym. These don't exist anywhere else in any of our enterprise systems. But you can add things like, does the school admit freshmen? Because sometimes that changes when new programs are added or taken away. Is it a large school or a small school? That's a relative definition, but some of our very large schools with thousands and thousands of students, when you plot that on a chart, you have the large schools and all the little schools are just noise along the axis. So you need a quick way to turn off the large schools so that the deans and administrators and executives can see what's going on with greater resolution. You can add those things into this table. And then what you do, and I'll leave this up a second for a picture or two, is you just blend them together. So that no matter what data set you're pulling from, it's going to go through that code table to the distinct table, waiting for the cameras. And what you're going to end up with is this result. So the School of Natural Resources and Environment is there 7 times. That's great. It's all called the same thing. And it doesn't matter what data set it's coming from. So the benefit is now you can control multiple data sources all in the same way. Depending on how your data sources work and how your dashboards work, you may have to do it with filters, you may have to do it with parameters. We do our best to always use filters, but sometimes that doesn't work and parameters are necessary to jump between data sets. There's no need to create, when there's a change, there's no need to jump in to figure out, okay, which one of these dozens of different calculations involved that particular thing or not. You can change it all in one place. And that happened to us. The School of Natural Resources and Environment, about 1.5 years ago, became the School of Environment and Sustainability. Had that happened without the names bridge, we would have had to go into every single one of the data sets, update every single one of the parameters, find all the calculations, and again, there's a little more laughter in the room because everybody understands what would have had to happen. We changed 3 cells. We changed the long name, the short name, and the acronym. We were done. Everything was just transparent to the end user. It saved us a tremendous amount being able to do this. This is probably, and we've done it before, a talk all to itself. So all we had to do was then also change the code bridge, the code table. Here's the new values. Here's where they're coming in. And we were done. That was it. Published data sources. What we did originally when we finished up a workbook is we just simply published the entire thing up to the server. Fine, we were done. We recognized a couple things along the way. Other people may want to use these because we have very good data sources, clean data sources, and the last thing you want is one report coming from us telling the provost there's 220 DDS students, dentistry doctoral students, and another report from the School of Dentistry saying there's 208. Because now they're going to question everybody's reports, they're going to doubt everything you give them in the future, so we wanted other people to attach the data sources. But you know when you build things in Tableau, to get to the right number, and I'll just talk on the finance side of things, to get to that right value, that right amount, you may have 17 different filters and a whole bunch of case statements and calculations in there, and that's not going to work when somebody else needs to attach to your data set and they don't know how you did that. So we had to clean up our data sources. Chris started this in HR, I followed it in Fin, and what we did is we ended up taking a finance data source that was approximately 2 to 2.5 hours to refresh the extract to about 37 minutes. What we did is we have workbooks that only attach to a data source. That's never published. It's the local data source, and it's very, very clean. The only thing we include in that workbook is that which is required to make the data right. So all the calculations and filters, we'll take those case statements, we'll put them into SQL, we'll program it up, and we'll use that in custom SQL statements so that all the user has to do is pull in the name of their unit, pull in the year, pull in the amount, they get the right value. All the calculations that are required to make the workbook work, level of detail calculations, things to adjust colors, parameter calculations, those are saved in the workbook themselves, so that way data sets are clean. Anybody can attach to them, anybody can use them. That also made it easier for us to control multiple data sources or multiple workbooks the same way. Parameters and filters were much cleaner, and it allowed us to have faster extracts. It allowed us to also do the calculations we needed to do between the data sources. So the future plans, one of them is departmental metrics. So where we started was university-wide with university metrics. We jumped down to the 85 schools and colleges with Michigan metrics. Departmental metrics, those 85 units, a good example maybe are the School of Literature, Science, and the Arts. They break down their couple hundred departments to the physical sciences and the non-physical sciences and overhead units in the dean's office. Then they break down the physical sciences into here's the biology department, and here's the chemistry department, here's the physics, and on and on and on from there. 3 or 4 different subgroups before you get to what at the university is 5,800 department IDs and that grows anywhere from about 5 to 20 department IDs a month as things get reorged pretty much constantly. So what you have here, Chris beat up on accountants before and said they really like their tables of numbers. There's a value to tables of numbers. If I'm looking at an instant in time, what is my number at the end of the quarter? There's no reason for a visualization. Just, here's your chart of numbers. That's what's on top right there. That's just numbers for the end of the month. Down below that is your visualizations for running totals and a month-to-month total of year-over-year of what's going on with your revenue and expenses. The tooltips here, by the way, are a chart. Tooltip is Vision Tooltip. It's just another chart showing you what went on in this particular month because, again, it's a point in time. Give the accountants and finance people their chart of numbers, and you can slowly get them to start using the analysis and Sankey charts and even waterfalls. So what's next? I'll leave to Chris.
All right. Thank you, Matt. So we've been working on many, many other things besides University Metrics and Michigan Metrics. Obviously, we're still going into those. We're still refining them. We're still adding new things to them. Most recently, what we've been starting to work on is real-time admissions. So we've been watching, as the students come in and apply to the school, how many are applying at this point in time, and where were we at a year ago, and a year ago, and a year ago, and comparing the trends between the years to say, are we on pace? Are we behind pace? Do we need to accept more? Do we need to accept less? How are we doing as far as ethnicity, race, gender, in-state, out-of-state? We're tracking them over time in comparison to previous years. And it's become a very big topic, especially pulling in some of our graduate schools. They're very interested in this sort of stuff. So we're working a little bit on that. I've been working additionally with the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, doing their own dashboards for exactly the same thing. So there's lots of people in the university interested in that. Additionally, we actually have real jobs too. I'm the Tableau application administrator, so I have to worry about the projects, the users, the groups and stuff on our Tableau server. And as Matt mentioned earlier, we made it a common good. So now that the server doesn't cost anything, we're having a wave of people come in, say, hey, I want a project now that it doesn't cost anything. So I have new security groups, new projects and everything to manage. Additionally, we decided we were going to start teaching Tableau. I went up to my manager and said, I'd like to try this. And we said, okay, let's open it up and see how it goes. So we opened up a class for 30 people, and we put a sign-up sheet up, and we had 194 sign up. So we've been teaching Tableau, and we've started teaching business objects monthly for the past year and a half, almost 2 years now.
2 years now.
We've been going nonstop with about 20 to 30 people per class. Once a month, we teach them all, and we get rave reviews. It's very helpful. The organization loves it, and it's a great thing if you can do something like that for your organization as well. In addition to admissions, we're working with the Office of Enrollment Management, doing a little bit of financial data with them. We're working with our Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, kind of taking a look at our demographics for our faculty and staff as well as our students. We've been doing a little bit of work with our investment office, so they are getting into Tableau as well and starting to use Tableau to manage our investments. And several other places. I mean, we get requests on a regular basis. We're a smaller group, but we're starting to grow a little bit. We're starting to pull in some more people and catch them up to us. Matt and I have kind of been just behind the 8 ball constantly and learning as much as we can, going as fast as we can. It's nice to have some more people coming in. We're starting to get them brought up to speed and helping us out as well. So that's been a lot of our work for the past few years. We also had what was called the U of M Tableau Symposium. So last year we put together, just on the fly, a symposium. We said, here's a bunch of topics. We worked together with our health system Tableau group and said, let's get a bunch of topics together. Let's each cover a certain topic, and let's see how many people show up. And we had about 250 people show up, and we had them all come in. We had little sessions. It was a mini Tableau conference for half a day. This year we did it again, and we had somebody specifically devoted to making it work. We had Tableau actually come in and do some of the sessions. We had Tableau doctor sessions. We had sponsors come in and help us with lunch, and we had all sorts of different groups doing different presentations, and we had about 400 people
About 400 people. We had 12 different sessions over 3 hours, so kind of like Tableau conference with a bunch of different sessions all at the same time. The last half of the day was the full day conference, was a hands-on session. So we've gotten lots of requests for hands-on sessions. We get more and more requests for advanced sessions too. So we take a lot of what we pull from here, from the basic tips and tricks, sessions that you get at Tableau conference to level of details and table calculations, set actions, things like that we get requests for as well. But that we put together for campus. We actually invited people from other campuses around as well to come in. We'll be doing that next year as well, we hope, building another University of Michigan Tableau Symposium. Quite literally, as Chris said, the best way to describe it is a one-day mini Tableau conference.
So we've been very busy, and we're continuing to work on everything as best we can. But we wanted to leave a little time at the end here for some questions, and we know it's the last session of the day, and we want to have a good rating, so we want to let you guys go a little bit. And just to reiterate, if you liked us, we're the University of Michigan. If you didn't, we're the Kobayashi Maru. So I'm kidding, don't do that. We are open for some questions if you have any. We have somebody in the back with a mic, and we will start trying to answer as best we can.